I've always considered myself a pretty rational guy, skeptical of ghost stories, never one to jump at shadows or let my imagination run wild. But one night, all that changed. I still shudder to think about it, and it's taken me a long time to share what happened. Maybe putting it into words will make sense of it. Or maybe it will just serve as a warning to others. It was a late October night, one of those evenings where the chill in the air is enough to make you bundle up in layers. I had been visiting my folks in the small town where I grew up, about 3 hours from where I live now. It was a nice visit, but I had to get back to the city for work the next day, so I decided to leave around 11 p.m. I figured the late night drive would mean less traffic and a quicker trip home. The first hour or so of the drive was uneventful. The highway was mostly deserted, just me and the occasional 18-wheeler passing by. I had the radio on low, more for background noise than anything. But as I took the exit onto the rural back roads that cut through miles of forest, I lost the signal and switched it off. The silence was unnerving, but I told myself it was just the isolation of the area getting to me. Nothing to worry about. About an hour into the drive through these winding tree-lined roads, I started to feel uneasy. The moon was only a sliver, and without streetlights, my headlights were the only source of illumination. Every shadow seemed to move, and the dense forest pressed in on both sides of the narrow road. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, but I kept brushing it off as paranoia. Then I saw it. A figure standing on the side of the road just beyond the reach of my headlights. I slowed down, trying to get a better look, but as I got closer, it disappeared into the trees. My heart was pounding, and I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was just a trick of the light, or a deer. I kept driving, but I couldn't ignore the goosebumps that had risen on my arms. A few miles down the road, I saw it again. This time, there was no mistaking it. A tall, gaunt figure, standing still, watching me. I slowed down, peering through the windshield, but as soon as I got close enough to make out any details, it vanished again. I was starting to sweat, despite the cold. I couldn't explain it, but I knew something was very, very wrong. I pressed on, trying to keep my eyes on the road and not on the shadows flitting by in my peripheral vision. My grip on the steering wheel was tight, my knuckles white. The road seemed endless, and my fear was growing with every passing minute. I just wanted to get out of the woods, to see some sign of civilization. Then, out of nowhere, my car engine sputtered and died. The headlights flickered and went out, leaving me in total darkness. Panic set in. I fumbled for my phone, desperate to call for help, but there was no signal. I was alone, stranded in the middle of nowhere, with whatever that thing was out there in the woods. I tried to start the car again, but the engine wouldn't turn over. As I sat there, frantically turning the key, I heard something that made my blood run cold. A faint, whispering sound coming from the darkness. It was indistinct at first, but it grew louder, closer. It sounded like a chorus of voices, all murmuring at once. I locked the doors, my heart hammering in my chest. The whispers were all around me now, and I could see shapes moving just beyond the reach of the moonlight. I felt trapped like a rabbit in a snare. I didn't know what to do. Stay in the car or risk getting out and running? Before I could decide, there was a sharp tap on the window. I screamed, turning to see a face pressed against the glass. It was pale, with hollow eyes and a wide, toothy grin. I recoiled, my back hitting the door on the other side. The face stared at me for what felt like an eternity, then slowly pulled back, disappearing into the darkness. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. I could hear footsteps now, circling the car. My mind was racing, trying to figure out what to do. Then, just as suddenly as it had died, the car roared back to life. The headlights blazed on, and I didn't waste a second. I slammed my foot on the gas, tires screeching as I tore down the road. I drove like a madman, not caring about the speed limit or the winding turns. All I wanted was to get away, to put as much distance between me and whatever was out there as possible. It felt like hours, but eventually, I saw the faint glow of streetlights ahead. I didn't slow down until I was back on the main highway, surrounded by the reassuring presence of other cars. I didn't stop driving until I was home, safely locked inside my apartment. I tried to tell myself it was just my imagination, that I was overtired and my mind had played tricks on me. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. I'd seen something that night, something real and terrifying. I still don't know what it was, and I'm not sure I want to. All I know is that I'll never take that road at night again. And every time I drive through a dark, lonely stretch of road, I can't help but glance into the shadows, half expecting to see that face staring back at me.